بالراح جدا تفديك يا بشار بالراح جدا تفديك يا بشار شعبته وشعبته أمم اسمع سكوت اسمع عرور اسمع الله بده وشعبته.
We're here again because we believe in the message that we're trying to give people today. And the message that we're trying to give people is that contrary to what you're seeing in the media, contrary to what you're seeing on your television screens, the truth is that Syria, yes, is under threat. And Syria is really under threat by a battle that's been waged to change the very face and the very nature of Syria. Syria is a secular country, one of the last secular regimes in the Middle East. There, people of all religions live side by side. Women play an important role in society. There are those that believe that Syria should be a religious state. Those who want to turn Syria into Iraq. Those who want to turn Syria into Afghanistan. Those who attack soldiers, and they've killed hundreds of them, and pretend that they're peaceful demonstrators demonstrating for human rights. What do they know about human rights? What do they want to do with the women of Syria? What do they want to do with the minorities of Syria? What do they want Syria to be? Far from this Walt Disney style democracy picture that the media is trying to sell us. When it comes to what we're hearing on our TV screens here in Australia, it reflects in no way the truth as to what's actually happening in Syria. This has been going on now for 6 months and it'll probably go on for quite a few more. But you'll see one thing, Syria's been able to hold together very well. And why? Because the people have supported their government, contrary to what the media is telling us. The vast majority of people in Syria have supported their government. The army is united and it's strong, it's not splitting along any sort of sectarian lines. The army is protecting Syria and all its people. And the last thing that the army cares is what your religion is. Syria is going to stay united. The people are going to stay united. They're going to support their government through this. The army will stay united and Syria will be victorious. And to the media, who once again hasn't turned up, they're not really interested. If you really want to know what's going on in Syria, ask the Syrians, they're here. Thank you. Truth, come here and we'll let you know. Thank you. Thank you.
The current government in Syria is secular, and what secular means to me is equality to all cultures and religions in a country, and allows their sovereignty to be exercised so people have choices and can be who they want to be. The position of women in Syria is the same as men. It's quite equal. Most of them are willing to see the reforms being progressed without international interference.
In regards to political reforms, at the beginning of the uprising, the first thing President Assad did was abolish an almost half-century-old emergency law. Following that, he abolished the high security courts. He then implemented new party laws, multi-party system, and he's also implemented a new media law allowing free media in the country. And many new reforms are going to be implemented. They're still in the process of being implemented.
So I came to Israel today to show the Australian government and the Australian people that we and I support Bashar al Assad as the leader of Syria, and we support his proposed reforms and oppose the revolution of terrorist takeover in Syria. In my opinion, Syria right now is under threat by terrorist organisations. They have stirred things up in an attempt to overthrow a secular government because they want an Islamist state. The Syrian president loves his people and they love him in return. That's why he has not gone down. All the Middle East, all the revolutions that have been happening in the Middle East, Egypt and so forth, their president has gone. Syria, Bashar al Assad is still there because his people support him. To the Australian government, I would like to say that their stance at the moment on Syria is going against the majority of the Australian Syrian community, and democracy in general is the majority has a view, and our view is being completely ignored.
I've sat down at the beginning of the uprisings and viewed masses of fabricated videos, fake videos, staged videos, set to demonise the government. I actually looked at various sites of what's happening on the internet. I speak to relatives in Syria. I speak to friends in Syria. That's how I know the truth. And I know what President Assad is working towards, and I know his vision for Syria is that of a secular nation. Because he's a president of just and comprehensive peace. Because he's a president that's opened his borders up to Kurdish and Palestinian refugees. He's opened his borders up to over 1 million Iraqi refugees.
To the protests, they're saying if you come down to a protest like now, you take $100. That's why people come down. Take $100. That's why. If you keep watching the news, if you keep watching Al Jazeera, you're never going to get the truth. What are you going to hear? Oh, millions of protests, millions. Why millions, man? Egypt was honest protest. Look, it took 1 week, 2 weeks, he's gone. If it was honest in Syria, he would have gone by now. It's been 7 months. Look, he's still standing strong.
The first thing I'd like to tell the Australian government is that Australians' interests aren't necessarily the interests of the United States. It's not in Australia's interest to take sides in a conflict that the government barely understands based on the statements of our foreign minister. It's far from reality that you can have this protests hitting the street and then all of a sudden the guy will resign, then all of a sudden there'll be this new rosy government that is beautiful and democratic and reflective of Norway. It's far from the Middle East reality. If anything, it's the secular government of Syria is stopping a potentially awful scenario from occurring in Syria and the region as a whole when it comes to the sectarianism that could emerge and the rise in fundamentalism, which is evident in many other countries of the region and has so far Syria has resisted. I think a very high probability, almost definitely probable, that if the current government was to go, what would replace it would be a sectarian conflict. What would replace it would be fundamentalists working along the same lines that they are in Iraq or Afghanistan, some sort of insurgency that, as you know, has been backed up by Al-Qaeda. You know, Al-Qaeda has openly supported the revolt that's occurring in Syria. It's good to see that America and Al-Qaeda are on the same wavelength when it comes to